I'm Kayla and I'm showing you all of my tips and tricks on how to get that perfect binding on your quilt every single time with minimal math and a couple tricks to help make things just a little bit easier along the way. In the last video, we hand tied this quilt. I have these adorable little X's in each of the little squares. Since that video, I did go ahead and put a stitch 1/8 of an inch from the edge, holding all 3 layers together. You don't have to do that, but it does make things a lot easier to work with when you're trying to sew 5 layers instead of just 3. And especially if you're using a lofted batting, because that lofted batting is pretty hard to work with. Okay, so here comes the math. You need to measure the perimeter of your quilt minus 52 by 52. So that is 208 inches of perimeter. So you need to cut at least 10 inches more binding strips than your perimeter is. My fabric is 44 inches wide, so I'm going to cut 5, and that'll get me 220 inches of binding fabric. We're going to cut this 2 1/4 inches wide. I'm going to iron these wrong sides together all the way on each one. Lay one of them right sides up and the other one right side down. You're going to make like a little plus. And if you have a selvage on still like I do, you want to make sure that it is at least 1/4 inch away from the edge right here on both sides. You're going to bring it over to your sewing machine. You're going to sew from this corner to this corner and cut off the selvage sides. Just go ahead and put our foot down, everything lined up. You can draw a line diagonal if you want to. I am not going to. I'm going to eyeball it because it doesn't have to be completely perfect. Get your next piece of binding and do the same exact thing. Line everything up, get it pretty close. Before you go to cut everything, check to make sure that everything lines up, and it's going to fold right back over where you ironed. You can either cut it with your rotary cutter, or you can just go ahead and cut off about 1/4 inch with your scissors. We have our seam pressed open, and fold that over. Have our nice binding with a very little bit of bulk. If you do a straight seam, which is perfectly acceptable, you are going to have more bulk in your binding that you have to sew through. Okay, so we have our binding pieced together with the seams ironed open and then folded back over. We're going to go ahead and put it on our quilt. You want to start placing your binding on in the middle of one of the sides, not near a corner. We're going to take about 6 to 8 inches and start a little bit back. Let me switch out the foot. I don't like this one. Try this again. I'm gonna go ahead and put our needle down, a couple back stitches. So you can see I have a little bit of batting sticking out. That's totally acceptable. We're going to stitch up to 1/4 inch away from this corner, right about there. Lift our foot, turn our quilt about 45 degrees, and then stitch right off. So before we put it back into our machine, we need to turn our binding straight up to where the binding is in line with this right here, straight up, and then fold it back down and keep everything in line. So you do have a 45-degree inside there, and then you want everything lined right back up, and then take it right back over to the sewing machine. Stay at 1/4 inch. Reinforce that corner just a little bit with a couple back stitches, and then off we go. We're going to leave about a 10-inch-ish gap. Do a little bit of back stitching to reinforce. And pull our quilt out. I'm going to cut one And then we need to cut the other one this wide, the width of your binding. We need to cut it. Oh, it makes me nervous every time. Yep, that's perfect. Fold that up. Take the one that's on your right and open it flat out and turn it this way. And then the one that's on your left, you're just going to open it and fold it directly over this way. You've made the plus sign again, only your edges are going to line up. I always check it with pins because it's so easy to mess up. On either side of the creased line, and then you're just going to open it up. And you want to make sure that you don't have a twist in it and that your crease is on the same side. So you know that that is correct. You're going to bring it directly over to the sewing machine and we'll straighten it out here in a second. We're going to get it laid out completely flat. Again, it is hard with all this bulk. So, to be a rebel and sew over top my pins. Now for the moment of truth. Oh, better take the clip off. And there it is. Just going to finger press it open. There's our binding. I know it sounds crazy. Grab a glue stick. You need washable school glue or fabric glue, and it needs to be non-acidic. Now we are going to glue our binding down. I'm just going to glue all the way along. And I'm going to go ahead and set it with the iron. I'm pretty sure that's optional though. So I understand that gluing it down is not going to be for everyone. It's going to need wash. Look, my fingers are gross, but I'm going to be able to sew down this binding super fast, get it thrown in the washer and be done. We're going to stitch in the ditch. So here is the finished product with a binding sewn on by machine. I enjoy doing a machine stitched binding, but if it's something for myself, I will always hand stitch the binding because I prefer the way it looks and feels. But I mean, you can't really beat the glue stick because pins and clips just don't hold it the same. So glue stick is my way to go for the binding. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.